I'm waiting for you. Morning. I'd like to call the Thursday, September 22, Planning and Policy Committee to order. First thing on the agenda this morning will be public comment. Please come forward and state your name and address and limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent items. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent items 1 and 2.
So moved.
Support. We have motion support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Under action items, regarding the resolution of support for the Grand River Band of Indians, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a resolution to support the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians Nation effort to gain recognition from the federal government.
So moved.
Support.
Second.
We have a motion now in support. Discussion.
So the county was approached about the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians seeking recognition from the U.S. Department of Interior so that they would be eligible for certain federal benefits and accessing different programs. Apparently there are other Indian groups that have been recognized, but not the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians. And so I attached some information. Congressman Huizinga supports this, and then I also give you a copy just of a newspaper article, kind of giving you sort of layman's terms of what this is about. But I just thought, it's our namesake, so I thought that you guys should see this, and it appears to have support from our congressman as well. So I just thought I would bring this before you. They're not asking for any money or financial contribution from the county. It's just a letter of, essentially a letter of support or resolution, I should say.
Does anybody know what was the tribe of the Indians that tried to turn into the old racetrack into a casino, and they were denied by the governor because they were not established Indian tribes?
I don't remember what the name of it.
Oh, I thought that
It's
was,
not the
I
same.
thought that
The Little
had
River
something to do
Band?
with Little River.
That might have been the Little River Band.
It was
Okay.
the Little River.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they're not the same.
Mr. Chair, I did suspend your rule on endorsing different propositions that really aren't within our wheelhouse or our statutory duties. Because if you look at the seal there, I think legitimizing the fact there is an Ottawa County or an Ottawa tribe is in the county's best interest. And so if you're going to suspend your rule for something, it seems to me this is a legitimate exercise.
Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Regarding the Ottawa County Parks Commission bylaws, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the updated Ottawa County Parks Commission bylaws and rules of procedure. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. How are you all?
Good.
So,
Yeah,
Excuse me,
I'll second them.
okay.
Wait, just a minute. We need I'll make the motion.
I'll support that.
Okay, all right, now go
Thank you, Rachel. You surprised me. Second.
good morning. So when I started in 2019, one of my first goals that I worked with Al on was updating our bylaws. And then, a few months into my arrival here, we had COVID. So this past year, we picked that back up, and I've worked with Corporation Council and the Parks Commission on updating the bylaws. So they're really clarifying and updating rules of procedure for how the Parks Commission interacts with staff, the roles of then the officers of the Parks Commission, as well as the relationship between the Board of Commissioners. So there weren't any real substantial changes, really more clarifications. So I'm happy to go through those, or if anybody has any questions, I could answer them.
I'd like to make a comment on that. They did a lot of work on it. the executive committee and Jason and redid the whole, not redid the whole thing, but went through it step by step just to make the bylaws really better. And Doug helped us a lot in the parks too. So a lot of work was put into this.
And really, before the edits, at times it created more questions about procedures and processes that were established in 87, but weren't really as relevant now today that we have a full professional staff.
Every 30 years, whether we need to.
Any additional questions to the board here from anyone?
No, I'm just glad that they took care of it.
Yeah, I can see they added, people have to attend so many meetings.
And they had a language in there, but we actually used the Board of Commissioners policy and included that. So, which in some ways was a little more stringent, so.
Which I think it's a good idea.
Yep. And it talks about their approval of properties, grant contracts, any donations or associated commitments. It also defined that the Parks Director, they can recommend to the administration, the Board of Commissioners, if the Parks Director needs to be removed. That wasn't clearly defined before. So it just really helped better understand the roles of the commission.
So then now they know for sure how to remove you.
Yes, yep.
That's next on the agenda.
Rough crowd, huh?
Yeah. How many bosses do I really have, right? So
Something
that's,
to do with an Ohio State thing.
it might.
Yeah.
Any other serious questions?
Doug, was there anything I missed in there?
Nope, you did a good job.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Regarding the item of the Explorer Trail, the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the resolution for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for assistance to complete the item of Explorers Trail Stearns Bayou Connector Project in Robinson Township.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and support. Herb.
So this item and the next item relate to grant applications to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. So it was in March of 2021 that you actually approved the application. In December of 2021, our applications were successful. And so the next step was to actually, the legislature needed to approve funding. That happened a couple of months ago. And now this is to accept the final agreement, the grant agreement, so we can proceed with the project. So I think this is a new process that we actually have to do another resolution for the actual agreement, but that's what they're requiring now. So that's what this is.
Questions? Kurt? Thank you, Kurt. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Kurt Park Renovation Trust Fund Grant, and the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the resolution from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for assistance to complete the Kurt Park renovation project in Grand Haven.
So move.
Motion and support. Discussion. Is there anything, Kurt, on that you want to
No, it's
add?
exactly the same as the previous. We were successful with 2 grants this year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any additional concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Discussion items. Legislative updates. John?
Not a heck of a lot since Bob DeVries gave an update, and as he said, and then for those of us that were at the MAC conference, right now, I think there are 2 legislative days between now and the election. So they don't expect a lot to get done until we get into lame duck period. So
It's one this week and one next week.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now whether they add more, but from what Bob was saying with the redistricting, there are a lot more competitive districts and they want to spend their time campaigning. So we don't really expect a lot of legislative activity until probably the lame duck period. Although the legislature did pass the secondary road funding, and that's going to the governor for her signature, and we expect her to sign that.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, we'll move on then to the second item is the Ottawa Conservation District.
I think, I don't know if this was at the request of Roger.
I requested this and maybe Becky and would you mind just bringing us up to date on what's happening? I know you know it as well as I do, and then we can ask Doug if he has some thoughts on how we might proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Roger. First of all, I want to thank the board for, having Roger start attending those meetings. It's been very helpful. I've heard really good feedback from district directors and the executive director on your presence there, and your comments have been very welcome during this time. So the Conservation District, as you guys all know, is operated by a 5-member board of directors. They typically have a 4-year term. Sometimes they're replaced midterm. Conservation District law is not robust on roles and responsibilities for directors. There's policies put in place by individual districts periodically. Those don't have a lot of teeth because state statute does not give a lot of rules and regs on how you manage directors that may or may not be behaving appropriately. Removal of a director is also problematic. And we're experiencing some issues with the current board that we're trying to manage. So that is the primary reason we're having this discussion today. You see the annual report every year from the district. You know how much they've grown, how much they do for the county, how much money they leverage into the county. So from a public facing perspective, there's a lot at stake. If there's public outreach that's done improperly, words get said, stakeholders, maybe get a wrong message, things like that. So it's really important that we all work together at the district to make sure we're messaging right, doing the right outreach, that type of thing. So briefly, that's one of the primary concerns. The county's invested, we pay $100,000 to the district every year through an agreement. So we're a highly vested stakeholder in this organization, and it's of the utmost importance to us to make sure that they operate with the most integrity possible. So Doug, I'll let you throw in behind that if you'd like.
Yeah, there's a present problem in the Soil Conservation District Board. But it's emblematic of a structural problem. I mean, this is one of those statutory anomalies where you've got an organization that is just really loosely defined. It's not part of the county, even though it carries a county banner. And so it's got to be confusing to the farming community as to whether, what the relationship is between the Ottawa County Soil Conservation District and Ottawa County. And it needs to be cleaned up. I think this is a project in part for John and Luke Meerman and our legislative contingent to give maybe an option. As counties have matured and evolved, there's a huge difference between Ottawa, Washtenaw, Ingham, and Iron County up in the UP. And this model may work well for Missaukee County and Iron County and others, but in a more sophisticated county like ours, there should be an option to embrace what's happening with the Soil Conservation District and bring it within our family of services. You look at what the Water Resources Commissioner does, there's a clear relationship between that and what the Soil Conservation District is doing. We have a robust MSU extension, the groundwater work that Paul is doing. There's certainly issues of potentially pulling agriculture out of the Marshall Aquifer and into surface waters. So that in our county, it would make more sense to embrace this project into the county government and then not have this really inadequate procedure where they hold an annual meeting and then elect board members at that. I mean, that's a prescription for disaster, and we've kind of had that temporary disaster here. I'm thinking that in January, this may be the first time in history we've not had a farmer on our board of commissioners. I don't know that any of the candidates running in November, but you look at the farming community and how important it is to Ottawa County, and farmers pay a lot in property tax. What kind of services do they get? This is an important service, and yet it isn't really part of the county family. And I think that needs to be statutorily changed. Right now, you have to have this board. It has to be elected that way. We can't change that. We have a contract. I've talked to Matt Heel, the chairperson. He's reluctant, frankly, to bring the whole operation without statutory authority into, the staffing into the county and then contracting. But I've talked to him about perhaps contracting for my services so that I can attend some of their meetings till we get them under control, because they're not under control right now, as Roger can attest. And so, with the connections that I can have to the sheriff's department, maybe we can, try to infuse a little bit more of a robust contract to get some services there that will help them out of their immediate need. But then I really do think this is a good project long-term for statutory change and an option to bring, this operation really into our county family and run it properly. I don't know long-term why you need a soil conservation district board. The county board of commissioners could serve, as that connection to, and have real elections, right? And real accountability to the public that way, and then be able to coordinate with what Joe and Paul and Becky are doing, in a more intimate way, I think is the long-term solution to this problem. It's not only Ottawa that's had this issue. I worked with Kent County for a while, and they had an entirely different issue, but the problem is still the same. And no one takes state doesn't want responsibility for it. Kent County didn't want any responsibility where they had taken out a loan. And so it's really orphaned. And it's just not a healthy situation, especially in a larger county, or a county where agriculture is, so important.
Would this be a bill that Senator Victory could possibly take up? I think
He'd be
I think it
perfect
would be.
to take it up and allow a transition, much like the road commission. There's not one formula that works for different counties, and yet in our county, we can see where the current formula is not working. Like I said, had a previous problem. And I think the farming community would be well served if we were able to bring it into the umbrella.
So your suggestion, right, for immediate
Yeah,
would be that.
amend the contract and provide some legal services, because they don't have any ability to tap into any, it's kind of doing in a small way what we would be doing if they were part of the team, which is there's other departments to call in for help when you have a particular problem like they have.
And that might seem like a small thing, but to the executive director, it would be enormous. They're
Yeah, she's
they're
got
very
no one
much
to
out on an
call
island in situations
help.
like this. Yeah.
I think I sent that to you and you read what Megan said. I mean, she's at wit's end.
Yeah, I read that too.
It's a real.
I reached out to a former board member. And he left the board.
Yeah.
Because of the problems on there. So, this has to be done sooner than later. I can see that, because that conversation department, they do a lot of work. A lot of good work for the county,
And I don't feel like I can provide them legal services. you know, because it's not really part of my
Right.
purview. And so if you contractually, and they contractually agree to that, then fine, I can go in there and help Megan out, or she's got someone to call, and then I can maybe use some of our resources here to help her out. So that would be my short-term proposal. Long-term project would be to try to get Roger and maybe Luke to do something in the legislature. And I think there'd be support in the farming community and other counties like ours. There's quite a few that have robust farming communities. Even Wayne County has a farming community, believe it or not.
So if we had if we asked Doug or John to put together a contract, what would that look like, and how would we? That would be a question for Karen. How would we-
That's what I'm asking is the problem here one board member and the fact that, you know, the executive director, you know, doesn't have a lot of administrative support. She's sort of the jack of all trades here. And so as I understand it, the solution is let's hire her as an employee and revise our contract. And I'm just,
Well, that's not the,
I don't think
Obviously-
they're looking for that yet. I would
Oh.
just amend the contract now so that the Soil Conservation District can call corporate counsel can provide legal services to the district. If they need HR services, they can call Marcy.
until the legislation changes.
Yeah.
okay, because your white paper was much more expansive.
Yeah, but
than
I
that,
talked to Matt.
to be
Matt,
honest with
and
you.
He doesn't want it. You don't really want that right now without more definition.
Right.
And so I think this is a less robust version of what we were talking about, so that we just provide resources for the district right now to be able to help them out if they have a particular problem, and then longer term work on an option as a potential statutory solution to bring them under the county banner.
So you're proposing amend the contract between the district and the county that would say if they need legal services, they could contact corporation counsel.
Yeah.
Would they pay for those legal services?
You know,
Or is that something that the county would be? just-
I'm thinking right now, that, you know, I don't know that they have the resources to tap, you know, pay, but, you know, I have time, I could help them. If they had an HR question, you know, they could call someone in HR and we would provide some support services in addition to the financial services that we provide. Right now, we just give them money. We have sort of a vested interest in making sure that money gets used properly. And they really need to tap into a larger organization when they have issues. And there's this one issue now that we would work on and hopefully help them with. But there's probably other times when Megan could feel like, geez, I could really use the expertise of someone in HR or even finance to give a call and say, what do I do with this situation? And that's the kind of support services I'm talking about for now. And that's it. And in addition to the money that we provide them, and then work on a longer term solution to the legislature. Because right now it's difficult. They have to have a board.
So Doug, is this something you would draft
Yeah.
up that we can send
I'll
out
draft.
to the full board of
Yeah.
commissioners? Okay, and maybe sooner than later?
Yeah, I'll do it this week.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Be on
Does
our-
that sound good, Becky?
That does. I think right now to have access to that, to amend it and do exactly what you're saying, to have access to some in-kind support legally and from HR would be key, because I can tell you if things come to a head and I'm not speaking out of turn, I've been in conversations with the chair and with the treasurer and with the executive director, and I'm, permissible to speak on their behalf right now. If things come to a head as we expect them to, it could affect all the other programming, because the executive director simply doesn't have time to deal with one more thing of that magnitude and still manage all the programs that she's got going. So having that available would be key to keeping things going. And in the long term, like you said, many districts have gone through similar situations. Genesee, Kent, you know, just multiple of them, they suffer from embezzlement issues because of the unusual nature of the conservation districts being a local unit of state government and kind of being an island. So to have that legislative fix, and there might be some other things we could amend within that legislation with Roger's help that would help all the districts in the state, not just Ottawa County. So in the long term, that would be a wonderful thing. But in the short term, this will be the life ring that the district needs right now.
I'll get to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Moving on. The Ottawa County Road Commission operations, there's two items. It's the Road Commission Task Force and the Public Utility Report.
This was put on at the request of Phil to talk about I guess some of the concerns you had expressed about the road commission and whether or not it was in the best interest of the county to take over the operations of the road commission. So turn it over to you, Phil. And I did include, this was something that was looked at 9-10 years ago, pretty in depth. The task force was, I think, formed in November of 2012 and issued a final report in June of 13. And there were numerous study sessions, a heck of a lot of work went into this. And as I understand, and I forwarded this to you when Brett sent this to me, a memorandum of understanding was then signed by the county and the road commission that kind of was the finality of this, or came at the conclusion of this report that outlines some of the steps that each party would take. And then that would be reviewed periodically from time to time. So I just thought that you guys should have a copy of that in case you didn't have that.
Yes, I was there. I remember doing that, and I thought it worked really well till what happened on North Cedar Drive. I thought the site they had for the future there was very inadequate, and I thought what they did to the people in the community and the taxpayers was not in the best interest of the whole county. Even though their theory is we only take care of roads and culverts and stuff like that. So in line of that, I would like to bring it to the full board and not just this board. That's my comment on that. Greg, you got any comments? You've
Yeah,
had many discussions.
I obviously I sit on the Parks Commission with Phil in here, some of the things going on, and I have heard too much negative stuff lately. It's a little bit disheartening, and I think it's something that we need to have some additional conversations about. I've reached out to some of the people that have contacted me and said we will have some discussion about this. You know, I don't want to micromanage anybody or anything like that. I don't want that.
No.
I just want to get to a situation where cooperation and mutual respect and a situation where people can work together. I want that more than anything. And I think sometimes that I think we're missing that sometimes. And obviously we see that in the park situation.
Would it help, with some of the concerns with North Cedar Drive and maybe some of the, customer service concerns, Greg, that you've mentioned? And obviously we can have a discussion at the board level if that's what you want. Would it be helpful to have a sit down with the road commission and go over some of those specific concerns?
I think both things are important. I think we need to have the whole board's input on this, but I also think that, I don't mind resolutions. And I think that sitting with the board of road commissioners, I think would also be equally important.
Do we need to have a work session regarding this issue?
I don't know if it's a work session, Roger, or not. I think it's more of especially with the road commission, just have a meeting and just throw it on the table what our concerns are, and how do we fix this together? How do we fix that so everybody gets what they want and we're not stepping on anybody's toes necessarily? I don't know, work session to me is more of a presentation. I just want an open discussion between the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Road Commissioners and say, how can we work together?
Yeah.
But
I think that's what you can do in a work session. I don't know what you guys. I mean, how else would we do it? I mean, you can't.
I'd like to see it created like the parks is personally. You have the Parks Board, you have a Road Commission Board, and they go through the commission, so.
I support going into the full board. I told you that, I would like that, but I would not support the county taking it over. I want to keep it the way it is. There's nothing against the road commission, but there's some baggage there that's very financial, detrimental to the county. So
Doug, you talked about something we might have missed there a while back about if they're elected or non-elected, the appointments and the amount of years. Can you refresh us on that?
Yeah. I think we have an appointed road commission. If you have an appointed road commission, the statute's really kind of squirrely as to your term. It's like the first odd year after the appointment. And so it looks like they should be only 2-year terms, not the 6 years are for an elected commission. You have an elected commission, you have 6-year terms. So I think we've been doing it wrong. Honestly, they should be shorter terms, which may bring some more accountability. I hate to be talking against myself because the Soil Conservation District, I was talking about bringing them into under the umbrella. But I think there are real financial issues. They've got pension issues that would have, Karen would have to take a close look at what that would mean for the county. And this is a very sophisticated program that has, operated generally well in the liability issues. I don't know that we would want to bring them out of their pool and into our pool because, road law is very different from 1983 and the sheriff's department. So as the lawyer for the county for 40 years on the liability side, if I were continuing, which I'm not, but I'd have to learn a whole new area of the law. And that would be problematic to have an expert in both fields. So there's issues there. Ironically, Amanda came to me yesterday and said, she's not here today, I see, but I'm investing the road commission's funds, but they don't really have a policy. And we talked about using the county's investment policy and having an agreement with the road commission that she would use that policy. We would be the custodian of their funds, subject to that policy. And then, we would indemnify them if we abuse, don't follow the fund or whatever, but we don't really have a custodial arrangement right now. So what I'm trying to say is, I do think we need a more robust agreement than we have right now with the road commission. I think that memorandum's talked about properties and that if they don't need them, what could happen, and that may be the solution for the North Cedar type situation. We try to work out something and update that memorandum, add the financial component to it. You're gonna have 2-year terms on the appointment, which will make the Board of Commissioners more involved in the road commission in the sense that there's more opportunity for appointments and there's a much shorter term in which the commissioners will be responsible to the Board of Commissioners. So I think we can package together something that doesn't radically change what we have, but may address some of these rough spots and also paper some areas right now that aren't papered properly. So, I think that's the route to go rather than at least to see if we can salvage this current situation without a radical change.
I don't see an issue with, the whole board having a discussion on this. Would it be more productive if some members of this committee and the road commission got together to talk about some of these concerns and then could report an update to the board on that to say, hey, we've had some of these concerns. We had a conversation with the road commission. Here are the steps that we're going to take versus just going to the board next week and saying, hey, we have some issues. So I think it's important for the whole board to know, but I'm just wondering if it'd be more productive to first have that meeting or meetings with the road commission and talk about that and have some more substantive update to the board.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I really am too. You know, if we could sit down and be open and honest with each other, okay? And then take that report back to the entire board.
Who would like to, I guess on behalf of the board members here would like to be a part of that, and we can get that
I would.
scheduled.
And I would too.
I would be part of that too.
Should we have the chair on there, I think, Matt? He is our chair of the board.
So we would want to not have a quorum of commissioners, correct?
Yeah, when you,
So you'd have met
five.
up to 5, right?
Yeah. So there's 4 right there.
So
You wanna
Matt,
go,
Greg,
Bill?
Phil,
Yeah, you
and-
wanna go?
Yeah, I'll be on it too.
Okay, so we got 4 of us and Matt. Good idea.
so the 4 of you plus Matt.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll get something set up for that.
Thanks.
Anything-
Thanks for coming.
You bet. Anything else?
How
on
many
this?
of us do you want on there?
Well, you don't want a quorum on there neither, do you? No, so 2 of you. And I definitely want you to come, Kurt.
Yeah.
Okay?
Anyone else have anything on this issue?
And I'll work with Brett just to schedule that time. Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on, this is a second opportunity for public comment. Seeing none, and before we adjourn.
Did you want to do anything? There was A and B, is that all included in
I
one?
think A and B is
Pat,
included, isn't it?
Yeah, that was really just for
Okay,
information,
okay.
so
I
you
just
had that
wanted-
background
Just wanted to
info.
double check.
Yep.
Okay, before we adjourn, does any other commissioners have any comments about anything? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Kurt.